director at Champion Events, a speaker, MC and ambassador for La Trobe Financials. Jacqui has also developed a gluten-free range of products for supermarkets because one of her kids is celiac, is a regular commentator on 3AW, an athlete, mentor, and regularly donates time to local community causes, all being a mum to 3 young children. Jacqui is passionate about communication and connection. Whether she's on stage or your computer screen, her energy is real and tangible, and you'll get that today in spades. When you connect with an audience, the message is more powerful, and that is when the change happens. Jacqui inspires changing, helping people rise to a high place of commitment, self-belief, with passion and a drive to do and want more for themselves, both personally and professionally. And we're going to dig into that today as well. Her resilient and entrepreneurial spirit in sport is still the foundation for her success beyond the ski suit. There are parallels between business and sport, and Jacqui makes the connection perfectly. As a side note, she's also had over 25 surgeries and a broken back. So she's broken just about every bone in her body. Anyway, welcome, Jacqui, and thanks for joining us today.
Well, what an intro. Thank you, Anne.
No problems. Let's maybe start here. So let's talk to the audience about what we've got here today.
So this isn't just a vase that we've picked up at DJ's.
It's not the crystal ball about what's going to happen in the future.
No, well, I wish it was. But this is my Crystal World Cup. So it's the Crystal World Cup that's given to the champion of the season. So it's a little bit like the winner of the Formula One Grand Prix series, or the tennis player that wins Grand Slams. So you go into different events every single week, World Cups, and the person with the most amount of points wins. This at the end of the year if you're on top of the leaderboard. And it's a really beautiful title to have. It's one that people want but never get. It is hard to get because you have to be great every single week, not just in one moment for a few seconds. So it's very different from the Olympic Games. It's different from the World Championships. It's every season, where the World Championships are every second season and the Olympic Games are every 4 years. It's so sought after that some athletes don't go to the Olympic Games if they think it's going to interfere with them winning the Crystal World Cup. Right. It's televised in Europe just like the AFL back here. So it's a very big deal. So I've brought one of them today to be our centrepiece to sort of showcase the presentation and the talk that we're going to have today around goal setting, motivation, passion, and having a champion attitude.
Yeah, fantastic. And I believe you have several more in the cupboard.
Yes, well, I was a little bit worried about bringing it in the back of the car in case someone rear-ends me. My daughter said, "Don't worry, Mum, you've got 7 more at home." So I do worry, though.
Fabulous. Let's maybe go back to when you were a little girl and, you know, what you wanted to be when you grew up. Did you sort of have that thought about being a professional athlete and an Olympian? And
no, well, that wasn't in the crystal ball back then. When I was a child, I was a crazy kid. I sought fear and danger and risk. I'm actually a triplet. My parents knew that I was different because they had 2 other measure sticks. They could see that my triplet siblings were playing with dolls and happy drawing and doing, you know, just things that kids like do, play games, where I'd be trying to get on the roof of the house. I actually did ride on the top of the roof of the vehicle one day, got out of the moving car. That's just one story. So I was a spirited child. I think there's one in every house. So it wasn't, you know, they weren't surprised when I wanted to do gymnastics. It was something I liked to do, tumble, turn, somersault on their bed. Yeah. They didn't really have time for that with 4 kids at a young age. So I didn't get a trampoline and I didn't get to go to gymnastics, but I did deliberately make friends with kids that had trampolines. So I could go.
Always, you know.
I know, crafty and clever. Yeah, I did. I went over to kids' houses, and then when we moved suburbs, there actually was a trampoline centre that had outdoor Olympic-sized trampolines sort of on the way home from school. It was about 2 kilometres in the wrong direction. So I had to convince my triplet sisters that didn't like acrobatics, that weren't athletic, to come with me, because my mum said, "You all arrive together, you stay together, you go together." And so I had to get them to come with me every day so I could jump on the trampoline. And one day when I was 16, a man happened to be at the trampoline. He went by, he saw me, he talked about a sport that I knew nothing about, thought that I would be great at it. Meanwhile, I'm thinking I'm going to be a rural vet. That was my big passion. My grandmother was the founder of the Blue Cross in Australia, so animals and animal welfare just ran through my veins, as well as acrobatics and somersaults. And he sort of gave me this inspiration behind, you know, a sport where I could somersault on somewhere other than my parents' bed. And I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I was so in love with that idea that I ran home and told my parents that I'd invited a stranger over to the house to talk about me being a world champion. Man. They actually call him the creep from the trampoline, but not so. Beautiful man with obviously a vision that no one else had for me but him. So that sort of took me on a path from wanting to be a vet and get into veterinary science at Deakin and do all those things, and then and work with rural animals, to spending my life on the side of a mountain, traveling around the globe, chasing snow, somersaulting at the height of a 4-story building and having 25 surgeries in the quest to win a few of these. So that sliding doors moment.
Yeah, right. And so at that age of 16, had you ever been on a set of skis?
My family liked going to the snow. So we had been going to the snow a little bit when we were younger. You know, we went up to Mount Buffalo. We're talking snow play, toboggans. My dad actually one day wanted to buy us lift tickets to go skiing, but my sister and I were so hopeless in walking with the boots and trying to handle the poles and the skis that he thought if they can't walk in the boots, how are they going to ski? So he bought 2 lift tickets. That was for the other 2 kids. And my sister and I had to watch those 2 by standing in the car park at Dingo Dell in Mount Buffalo watching them. So it's ironic that now that was where my life took me. But look, it was really just being put into an accelerated skiing program at Mount Buller and sending me on a path so that we could keep that goal of being a world champion that he set for me in the kitchen when I was a skinny 16-year-old schoolgirl. So he'd set the destination and he created the roadmap for me. Yeah, brilliant.
And, you know, during that sort of time, you had many highs, but you also had many lows. So, you know, the highs sort of keep you going, as we know, and the lows are much harder to get over and sort of get back up and keep going. So let's maybe just talk about how you managed through the highs and the lows.
Yeah, well, when people see you holding the ski up or the crystal globe, that happens for only a very short moment, and it only happens for a very small amount of people ever. And so what I realized through my career is that you have to love the good and the bad. You can't just love that moment because it's only going to be a short moment. You're holding up the ski, you get a few people clapping the national anthem, it's fabulous. But that can't be enough for you to want to do something risky, crazy, brutal, where surgeries and adversity is an absolute reality. It has to be more than that. So I loved the challenges. I loved the challenges of the adversity. I loved the idea of finding ways to be better. And believe it or not, those surgeries taught me so much about myself that I didn't learn when I was holding my ski up on top of the podium. They were really rewarding moments for me when I could come back quicker than the surgeon said, or I did reinvent myself, and technically, physically and mentally, it was a real challenge. So yes, there was high moments and I'm holding the globe up and I'm excited about where I am athletically and for my sport. But the hard times, I would have to say that by attaching a goal to those hard times made it, for me, because I'm motivated by that style of, I guess, of doing something, that if I attached a goal to it, I forgot really about the pain, the sacrifice and adversity, and was really just so focused on what I needed to do. I sort of left that negative behind and always stayed positive.
Yeah, okay. So let's, you know, you brought up goals there, and today we were going to talk about goals and goal setting. So what would be your advice, particularly as people are coming out of COVID-19 and probably sitting at home going, oh gosh, I probably really need to reset my goals? Or people are sitting at home going, I've got my goals, but they're all a bit too hard. And so what would your advice be about goal setting and then actually sticking to it?
So my big thing on goals is first thing you've got to do is actually get it down on a piece of paper. And what COVID's done is, whether we like it or not, those goals have been reset for you. So you're either out of work, or your work's changed, or you're now doing something completely different because you may have been redundant, but you've decided to take work elsewhere where opportunities have opened up. So, but you have to create some new goals. But by having a goal in front of you means that you're focused, it means you're inspired, it means that you've got a much better chance at actually making that happen for yourself. So you need to create a plan. And when I was 16 years old and I was with Jeff, the man from the trampoline, what he did was he talked to me about having a roadmap. And so the goal is the end destination. So that's where everyone wants to be. It's by having a roadmap and a way of being able to get there. And some people put down the goal, but they actually have no way or no real idea of how to get there. But if you've got a roadmap, a proper one where you know that you're moving forward, you're not making wrong turns left or right, that you'll get there in the right time, but you keep looking at it, you'll arrive at your destination. So he said to me, you've got to look at your goal 10 times a day.
Yeah.
You know, maybe not that much now if you're older, but at 16, he said, for you to stay focused on a destination that's 10 years away, look at it 10 times a day, and I promise you, you will stay motivated, you'll keep making small steps towards that end destination, and you'll stay inspired, which is the most important thing. If you're not looking at something, you're going to lose that inspiration pretty quickly. So get it in front of you, which is the main thing. Get it in front of you. Work out what you actually need to do to make that happen. So I've got this invisible toolbox. So get your toolbox, empty it, and the toolbox might be skills that you've had from work. Are they needed in your new role? And if they're not, get rid of them. What skills do you need to put back into the toolbox? You know, am I missing maybe a little bit of resilience, or the ability to work with others, or being able to process feedback? All of those things, look at your toolbox, repack it, and make sure that you've got a toolbox that works for you as you move towards your next destination and achieving the goal. No use in setting a goal if you actually don't have the tools and the skills around what it is that you need to be able to get there when you get there as well. Being focused and get yourself a toolkit.
And what about the whole mental mindset, you know, because sometimes it does get really hard. And, you know, how do you sort of keep yourself going?
Well, I think you've got to love what you do. I think that's the most important thing. So if you ask somebody if they love their job and like, they're probably the type of people that are maybe going to lose their way a little bit. But if you ask someone that really, really loves what they do and they get up with a champion attitude and a massive, big spirit, they're not going to lose their way. They're so focused on wanting to be better. They're so focused on wanting to get to the destination and achieving their goal. You know, they're not thinking about it. You know, their body language is positive and they're moving. So set a goal for something that you actually love. Get yourself into an area that you love. And if COVID actually has taken you out of work, really think about what it is do you love doing to be able to reset yourself for the next 5, 10, 15 years. And then you'll already have that internal inspiration, motivation, drive, determination, desire to be able to push through anything, and it won't be a task.
Yeah, okay. One of the things you talk about is the creepy little man from the trampoline, Jeff, who has been your mentor for many years, I understand.
Yes.
So how important is the mentor-mentee relationship? And, you know, you were fortunate enough that he found you. There's probably a number of people out there that would really benefit from having a mentor. How do they go about actually finding one as well?
So the mentor-mentee relationship it's a special one, it's a unique one. It has to work both ways though. For me, I was really lucky. At 16, I was really open to sort of having almost a little bit like a father figure, to have someone sort of take me on a path, and someone that believed in me more than I did myself. He knew me quite well, believe it or not, just by the way I spoke. So I was lucky there, and I've known him 31 years and he's still a big part of my life. The mentor relationship, that mentor is so valuable, and I think that if anyone thinks that they have some value, some insight, some experience or some skills that they could offer, put their hand up. And it isn't a taxing role at all. A lot of people think that if they want to become a mentor, it's almost like a therapist or it's going to take too much time. It actually doesn't.
It's quite rewarding.
It's very rewarding, and to feel like that you've had a hand in someone's development, personal development, professional development, how rewarding is that? I mean, it's unbelievable. Jeff and I talk about that all the time. Like, without him, what would I be doing? I'd probably have a trampoline in the backyard of a rural property looking at cows. Do you know what I mean? So, but here I am today because of Jeff and his continued guidance with me. The mentee has to be ready, because sometimes mentors go and tap people on the shoulder, but they really have to be ready for that relationship. They have to be open to the feedback. They have to be ready to maybe make some change, have a great way of communicating as well. So I think it's a really nice relationship, but it has to work for both. And it is difficult to find though.
Yeah, it is. Okay. So, you know, one of the things that you talked about with all your injuries and everything was having to reinvent yourself. And one of the things, you know, a lot of people find, particularly at the moment, but are very resistant to change and don't deal well with change. You've had so much change in your life. What would your advice be to our community around change and embracing change rather than resisting change?
Well, change right now it's happening whether we like it or not. And there's two types of change is what I think. There's There's change when you're forced to make change. And then there's early change. Early change is where you change before you need to. You recognise the fact that to stay relevant or to stay consistent or to stay, you know, competitive, that you make early change. You keep changing so that you can have longevity in a career. Look at people like Madonna, all of those guys. Like, they aren't like what they were in the 80s. They continue to change so they stay relevant to the audience for now. The mobile phone. All of those things. Right now we're dealing with forced change. We've had to force a lot of changes and we weren't ready for it. No one was ready for this.
Yep.
And I would say is that don't wait for forced change. Make early change. And early change is hard because normally things are going okay. And you're like, well, if it's going okay, why would I want to change, you know? But it's difficult because it takes time, it takes energy. It can be a little bit scary for some, you know, and you just have to, I think you have to put yourself out there and know that on the other side that you'll be better than you were today.
Yep.
And change, don't be afraid of it, you know, get on the early change, make it happen. And I would say about COVID is that if it's taught us anything, is that we all can change very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't resist what happened.
Adapt.
We can adapt. We're super flex. That's what I talk about all the time. Be super flex. Be flexible enough so you can be adaptive, so you can keep moving, be very fluid. But it's taught us all, whether you're a child, being able to adapt and homeschool, whether you're a mum and you're working from home and homeschooling, whether you're a dad and you're now working with kids at home.
Yep.
It's taught us all that we are resilient and we're adaptive and we can change. So just take that on board. It's taught us a really big lesson about who we are as people and that we actually can do it.
Yeah, so true. I just want to go back a little bit actually and just, you know, you've had some significant moments in your life, personally and professionally, and I just want to touch on the personal side and just talk about your IVF journey. You know, we were talking before we started and you were telling me that you were celebrating that they told you had a 4% chance of actually falling pregnant. So just talk us through your IVF journey.
Well, yeah, for my husband and I finished my career when I was 37, so an advanced maternal age. So there's already one fertility factor right there.
Yeah.
I had 6 fertility issues, 6. Most couples that need IVF have 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And then they're only given about a 40% chance with IVF. So I had all of the different tests done and we had a meeting and then my fertility specialist said, Jacqui, we need to give you some news. It's not great. You've got a 4% chance of actually having a baby given your advanced maternal age and everything else. It's stacked against you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought you were going to give me bad news. I said, that's fantastic. And he goes, no, not 40%, it's 4. I'm like, I know, I heard you. I thought you were going to tell me I couldn't have a baby. And he goes, all right. We're dealing with an individual that's obviously very, very optimistic and positive here. But that's what I thought. I thought, you know what? 30 years ago, if you'd said an Australian girl was going to go out and win 5 world titles and be the best in a sport, a winter sport, he'd give you a 0.5% chance of that happening. This guy's giving me a 4%. I'm going to take that. I can make this happen.
Yeah.
And so I just attached my champion attitude from sport. Basically, I moved it from that goal and that destination of winning that. All of that toolbox, except for the helmet and the ski suit, it all came off. That toolbox of resilience and passion and moving forward and getting a team together and working towards something that I wanted, that toolbox I used in the IVF process. And it was hard and it was challenging and it was just like aerial skiing. I landed a few jumps and then I landed on my back and then I landed on my head, you know. IVF is tough, it really, really is. But if you go in there feeling like there's hope and that you've got a good team around you and that you know that it can happen, then that was for me. I was able to make it happen. I have 3 children now and I'm proud that they're IVF and I'll tell everyone that they're IVF. So, I mean, I wrote a couple of books, one for children and one for couples wanting to take that next step in their fertility treatment. And yeah, I don't know where I'd be without scientists, you know. My husband and I, we need to get a scientist involved, not so romantic, but still at the end of the day, we got our goal.
Yeah, brilliant. I love the whole story about your IVF journey, and that part of the journey was that you were sort of supposed to stay still and, you know, not be very active and not do very much, if that's my understanding. And you sort of got part way through that and just decided that that was not for you, so you sort of worked with them and they worked with you to make sure that you could still, like you said, still have a career in the event you couldn't have children, so you weren't putting everything on hold. I love the story about when you were doing a keynote speech and you had to stop because you had to actually have an injection because your injections had to be at a specific time. Maybe just share that story with the audience.
Well, the first thing they say to you when you do IVF is make sure that you put your life on hold. Don't go anywhere, don't plan to do anything, this is your life. And for me, that just didn't sit well. So I had to find a fertility a clinic that would actually work with Jacqui Cooper. Like, this is my life, this is what we're going to do. And I was really lucky that they're like, okay, we can work with you. I needed to travel, I needed to move around, and I certainly didn't want to put, pun intended, all my eggs in one basket, you know. I wanted to be able to have a career, because if I didn't have children, the career is what was filling my, you know, just who I was, ticking all my boxes as a person, as a professional. And I thought the mother thing might not happen, but I still want to give it a go, but I need to move around. I had a keynote in Bathurst to the university up there, and I needed to take the trigger injection, which is the most important injection, before you get the eggs retrieved. It happens at 8 o'clock at night. 36 hours later, at 8 o'clock in the morning, the eggs will be retrieved. 8 o'clock at night. I said to the event coordinator, at 8 o'clock I need to take the injection. They said, but that's when you're going to be on stage. I'm like, I need to take the injection. I said, how can you make that happen? So I was having a bit of a chat, doing my keynote, and right before 8 o'clock, I'm sort of looking at my thing. I thought, I'm like, to the uni students, guess what, guys? This is going to be a long prezzo. Time to go refill the drinks. Everyone went to the bar. I quickly went to the toilet, gave my trigger injection, came back and said, let's get into it. And so you can just make it happen, you know. Even going to the movies, sat in gold class, I was doing, you know, I didn't stop, you know, and I think that's the thing. Don't sit around for anyone or anything, just keep moving.
Yeah, great advice, and congratulations on your 3 beautiful children.
Thank you.
I love watching them on Instagram, they're fantastic. So at the moment, what's an average day look like for you and your family, given everything that's been going on?
So I'd have to say that, you know, life is hectic. I went from being hectic for myself and travelling. When COVID hit, I just finished International Women's Day week, which was massive. I had 9 events. I was zigzagging between Sydney and Melbourne, and I arrived home on March 12th. It was a Thursday. The next day, Friday the 13th, everything started going to shut down, and straight away my event calendar, as you know, because I'm an exclusive with you guys, everything got postponed, cancelled, put on hold, or just deferred. And I had all this time on my hands, but at the same time, the children were asked to come home from school and be homeschooled. And that was my new goal. Yeah, right. So I just moved my focus from here to here, and I did everything I possibly could to school those children well. I went to Officeworks and bought up just about everything. I've got 2 5-year-olds.
So you cleaned out the shelves.
Yeah, flashcards, words, sight words, books, puzzles, everything. So I became their teacher, and I put so much energy and effort into them, and I actually think that was a gift. I do. Yeah. To be able to say that you taught your children how to read and be very involved in their educational journey with them as preppies. You know, they're 5 years old, the twins. Yep. I loved it. COVID has been difficult and it's been tough, and it's something that none of us wanted. Yep. But I think that if we can all find that little silver lining for ourselves, whether it's spending time at home or doing a reno or cleaning out your drawers, whatever it might be, there's been something there for everyone to be able to take away and go, that was a time that I remembered that I did this. Yep. And so that was for me. I've loved schooling them. I'm definitely ready to get going again. I'm hoping that all of the restrictions mean that we can all get back to getting speakers out there, inspiring a country to do more, want more, and succeed, you know. So I'm excited by that. My kids are back in school now, and they're doing well. So I'm, that's my day, but I'm ready to get moving again. Yeah,
awesome. And what would be your sort of 3 takeaways for the community today? If you could give them 3 pieces of advice today, what would that be?
My advice would come back to the toolbox, is to make sure that your toolbox is relevant for now and also for next week and for a plan B. So make sure that your toolbox is full of things that you need, not things that were relevant to your business or to yourself personally, professionally 20 years ago. So have a bit of a check in your toolbox, empty it, have a bit of a look, think about where you want to go. The next thing would be is love what you do. Just love what you do, because anything else just makes it so much easy. And I would say the third thing is that wake up every single day with a champion attitude. Yep. If you can wake up every day with an attitude to your family, to maybe people on the road, or to the frontline workers, or to your team at work, to your competitors, whether you're an athlete, whatever it is, if you can wake up with a champion attitude, you're going to have a champion day, or you're going to get champion results. So it's all about your attitude. It's an attitude to everything, and I call it the champion attitude.
Yeah, awesome. And we've got a couple of questions that have come up, so I'm just going to throw to a couple of questions. The first one is around IVF, and somebody's just asked how many attempts before you fell pregnant.
So I had 4 attempts and 2 miscarriages for the first pregnancy.
Yep.
And I was only a couple of months shy of being 40. So, you know, obviously advanced maternal age.
Yep.
Madeline was born in September. I turned 40 in the January. And the next, to try and have the twins, I had multiple miscarriages, more IVF cycles. It was actually harder for the second pregnancy, which was the twins, to try and bring that to a live birth.
Yeah,
because I was now 42, nearly 43, so it was
Yep.
a lot harder. But we still have a Frosty in the freezer. So my last cycle, I call it the super cycle, my last cycle where I'm like, oh, this has to be it, you know. My husband's like, you're not getting any younger, you know. And he was so funny, my husband, because in Australia and Victoria, they only like to put 1 embryo in. In America, they put a lot in and they get a lot of multiple births.
Yeah.
And we had said the night before we were doing the transfer, we'd thought out an embryo, and everyone has to sign off, we're going to do 1. Throw out 1 embryo, let's put it in. My husband quickly changed the consent form and put a number 2. I'm like, what are you doing? And he goes, look, let's
Double our odds.
Yeah, exactly, let's just do this. And so then the embryologist and the IVF specialist had to agree. I was the last one thinking, I don't know about this, I bet it's going to be twins. And he goes, would you care? Would you really care at the end of the day if you got 2? I'm like, nope, let's do 2. And so, yeah, so it ended up being the twins, and me being a triplet, I love that idea of my kids having the relationship that I had with my triplet sisters. So I just feel so blessed, I really do.
Yeah.
And if anyone's thinking about it, don't put it off. I know it's hard, be ready for that, but none of that matters now. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, one of the questions here, and we've sort of covered it, but how have you managed the whole homeschooling, giving your incredibly full life? And by the way, loving Jacqui's energy and incredibly positive outlook.
Oh, thanks, yeah. Oh, imagine my husband, he calls me the Energizer Bunny. We've been together 20 years and he's like, he still can't find the off button. Like, I'm always like this much going on. Look, what I had to do during that whole absolute shutdown and lockdown during COVID is just make sure that I concentrated on 1 or 2 things.
Yep.
You know, obviously with the restrictions, I couldn't go out and do what I was usually doing anyway. The community work that I like to do with volunteering, going into schools, that's not going to happen anyway.
Yep.
You know, having events at the MCG, that's not happening. I'm not working with you.
Yep.
I was doing some kitchen keynotes, but everything else, my focus was my family, and that had to be my number 1 focus, was my kids, was schooling them and making sure that my family unit, as well as the grandparents, were all taken care of. So I just brought it back to what's the most important thing right now, and it was family for me.
Yeah, okay. And what's one thing that you'll never take for granted again post-COVID?
For me, I'll never ever take for granted flexibility.
Yeah, right.
The flexibility to be able to do what you want, when you want to, with who you want, with how many people you want, travel, go where you want, when you want. The flexibility, COVID was the absolute leveler.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you're a superstar, whether you're an AFL player, you can't play football.
Yep.
Beyonce wanted to come to Australia tomorrow, she couldn't.
Yep.
So everyone is at the
same level.
Same level.
Same playing field.
So no one can move, and like I said, that's taught us so much about ourselves, that we can stay put, we can stay at home, we can do the right thing.
Yep.
And so I would say that it was flexibility.
Yeah.
That I will never ever take that for granted again. To be able to do what you want when you want.
Yeah, okay. And was there any single sort of piece of advice through your career that you were given that was sort of really, I suppose, you know, game-changing, or just sort of maybe help you change your path, or, you know, any advice that you were given that really changed your direction?
That's a really important piece. And there's a lot of people, they love to give you advice, you know, on your career, and you've got to work out what to listen to and what to use. And our sports psychologist, Barbara Meyer, she's a lady from Wisconsin. She's a professor there in the university. She's unbelievable. And she would always say, Jacqui, just get out of your own way. You're in your own way. You know, if you could just get out of your own way, you'd be really great at what you're trying to do. So get out of your own way. And that was me, almost self-sabotaging, like thinking, oh, maybe I wouldn't be able to win, or can I do this? Or just that listening to that internal dialogue that was maybe a little bit negative.
Yep.
Get out of your own way. And just, if you're out of your own way, she knew that I'd be great enough to be able to do wonderful things. But the person that was impacting me was me.
Yep.
So she just told me to get out of my own way and just let it happen.
Great advice. I think everybody needs a Jacqui Cooper in their life.
I love it.
I could sit here and chat to you all day, but our time has come to an end. So Jacqui Cooper, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great.